So have we started?
I think we can. Molly, do you have our music?
I do have the music.
Have you heard the new music, William?
I have.
It's
Did you?
great, isn't it?
Wait, hold on.
Well,
Here we
didn't
go.
I hear it 2 weeks before?
Well, I don't know.
Let's see.
Ladies and gentlemen, Movies with Mark.
Yes, that's wonderful.
It really
Yeah, we
is.
didn't have it.
So
I
cute.
wasn't here last time, but the time before we did have that.
We did have it, and you were here. That
Yes.
was you.
Yes, that was me.
Okay. But let's talk about this kind of magnificent movie. I think
Yeah. What did we watch?
Raise the Red Lantern, a movie by, and I went on the internet on this famous machine here to learn how to pronounce it. It's Zhang Yimou, directed by Zhang Yimou,
Okay.
Zhang, second name, and I'm always confused with Chinese names. Which name is actually the first name and which name is the last name? Last name is Yimou. Imu.
The credits were weird, going sideways at the end.
Yeah, that was kind of weird.
It's weird for us.
It's weird for you. That's what they do, and where the majority of the people on the planet live in China. It's interesting. Yimou is considered to be one of the fifth generation Chinese directors. I'm not familiar with the first four. I'm really only familiar with them, and I'm not familiar if there's been a sixth and seventh generation, which there must have been. They're so called, according to Roger Ebert, because they were born just after the Cultural Revolution, but grew up in the aftermath of the Cultural Revolution, and were allowed or were able to express themselves and express their ideas about the human condition in China in a more liberated way than Chinese directors are now, because the government hadn't caught up with them. The government hadn't figured out how to lean into them and tell them not to do that. So he's able to make a movie like Raise the Red Lantern, which was banned in China.
Oh, I thought so.
Yeah.
I would imagine so, because it's like I said, I can't imagine the government would want Chinese people to see this movie.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's not like agitprop theater. It's not like political theater, but it is clearly political in terms of gender politics and in terms of its notions about authority and how people live in authority. It's the story, briefly, if I'm not known to be brief, but briefly, I will elucidate. I'm proving that I'm not prone to it by elaborating right now. Is a 19-year-old young woman, formerly a college student. Her father dies. Her mother can't support her.
Stepmother.
That's right. Her stepmother. That's right. The evil stepmother. That's right. Refuses to support her. So she essentially sells herself to go and be married to, or to be the concubine, the fourth concubine. Is she called the fourth concubine or the fourth wife?
They call her the fourth mistress.
That's right, the fourth mistress. Sometimes it's wife, sometimes it's mistress, sometimes it's concubine.
Can you explain to me what a concubine, the difference between a concubine and a wife would be? Is it like
lower class level?
Lower class level?
I looked that up. I looked it up.
Oh, good. So concubine implies lower class.
Okay.
Which means I can't get a concubine. So I'm the bottom.
You're there must be somebody who's got a lower class than you.
I don't think I want that.
I don't think so. I'm walking the streets anyway.
I thought of you when she was having her foot massage, Tom. I was wondering if you had schooled Molly in giving you a foot massage.
He did put his foot up in my lap during that scene.
Did you have those little mallets with bells on them?
We got a gun, but I love the sound of them.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
they
know.
sounded great. They
I
really
think
did.
the sound was
Everything
intentional.
about life as a concubine sounds great, except that the opera, one of the third wife or the third mistress is an opera singer, and that and I don't listen to a lot of Chinese opera, but it reminded me to.
I don't think I need to listen anymore.
I don't
It
need
would
to-
drive
no, I
me
don't need to listen
insane.
more.
Her voice. Oh my God, it was horrible.
It's like cats fighting on the fence, and I think it's good. I don't think it's great opera, but it's intended to be good. It's just what Chinese opera is. It's very high and
I'll
It's
stick
just
with
the
the
style.
Italian opera.
yeah,
You could
it's
tell
not
she was
Verdi.
talented, but it was the style. It just was
Yeah,
so
it's the
high
style.
pitched
It's the
and
thing.
hard to listen to for my
Yeah,
ears.
you can be the world's greatest nail on a chalkboard instrument
Yeah.
player.
Yeah.
Well, I felt empathy for every one of those women, but her in particular, that I just felt she was tortured. I mean, like she was an opera singer, but then here she is relegated to being the third wife,
Right.
and to me, she seemed so unhappy.
She's very
Well,
unhappy, and but as all of them do, except for Gong Li, the woman who plays the fourth wife, fourth mistress, uh, they are able to put on, and even she at times is able to put on a happy face. But the third mistress is able to put on a happy face, and the second mistress, the one who's sort of plain looking, but is described as having what?
A Buddha face and
and the
a
heart of a
scorpion.
scorpion.
The heart of a scorpion.
That's
Yeah,
right.
she was
And
too
she
good to be
does.
true. She was too sweet. I was like, yeah, I could see she wasn't good.
Yeah, yeah, you can see. But Gong Li's character, the fourth mistress, our hero, is fooled by all of them because she's 19, she's young, she's a college student, probably has come out of a relatively idealistic situation and an academic situation, and she's just doesn't seem to be used to the kind of infighting and the kind of jealousy that these four women, the four wives, because all of them are still there, and raise the red lantern. Just for those of us who haven't seen the movie, those other people that are watching us, our lantern, a red lantern there's red lanterns all throughout the space that they live in, and we'll get to talking about the space that this movie takes place in a minute or two. But a lantern, a red lantern on a tripod of wooden sticks, very beautifully carved and very graceful, is put in front. Each of the four mistresses lives in her own separate. Sometimes it's referred to as a house, but it's like a row house or a series of apartments.
It's like a room.
Well, it's like a
It
room.
seems like it was just a
It's
room.
a nice room, and I love the decoration and the opera singers. And as Gong Li says, as the fourth mistress says when she's invited in, it looks like a set. And
Yep.
it is. It's a set. It's very big and colorful. Gong Li's apartment is decorated by her, although we don't see it, I guess, but it's much more classic and standard and old school. All four mistresses are still alive. The older one is the mother of a young man who
I think you skipped over a point there, Mark, that's very important.
What?
The nightly, I think it was more of like a Stockholm syndrome, because you notice the first, whoever gets the red lantern gets the master that night.
That's right. I did. You're right.
Yeah.
The red lantern is placed in front of one of the domiciles, the houses of the four, and that's where the master goes that night.
And on that note, real quick, I thought it was real interesting while we're talking about it that the foot massage mallets were so loud,
right?
Because I almost felt like it was intentional,
It's
so
psychological.
that all of the other wives can hear the one that was chosen for that night getting their foot massage, and it gets in their heads. And
Also,
create.
the guy yelling out, "Bring the red lantern," kind
To
of
the house number 2.
Yeah.
right.
And then they're sitting there just in their own homes, like, you know, no
No,
foot
they were
massage,
not.
just
They were
hearing the.
They were standing outside. I don't know if you caught
Yep.
that. They
Oh,
were
yeah.
standing outside
yeah.
their
I
domicile,
just meant
and when he
afterwards.
made the choice, they would go in with their servant. But like
Right.
I have to say, the guys that put up the lanterns and just kind of just how everything went, and they hung them and lit them. I thought that was really interesting. I liked the thing they carried it on. I mean, that showed like a tradition.
It was
It's
very
something I didn't-
ceremonial.
It was very ceremonial, but it for generations they've been doing that.
No, it was a psychological torture.
It is.
The first lady did not even want the master until she met the other ladies, and then she did not want them to have the master.
Right. They're all infighting with each other over the master, but none of them likes being raped. And essentially,
Yeah.
it is rape. It's a kind of a rape.
But
that
the
they
only
do.
pleasure they get
they're
is that
sex
foot massage.
slaves. What?
The only pleasure they get is that foot massage before the rape.
Right. Right.
That's like the highlight of the day.
Well,
Right.
wait, is it a rape if they have agreed to become that person and they're calling it a rape? It's not
Did they
something
really
against
agree
their
to it,
will.
though, or
If they
did they
really
not
agree
have
to
another
it-
choice?
That's a long discussion, and
Yeah,
we
that's
should
like a
have
a
a
sex
seminar and bring
servitude.
people from the Me Too movement in and bring
Right.
psychologists in. I mean, it's generally accepted that rape is an act of violence, not an act of sex. It's yeah, whether they
It's
have
a gray
agreed, they have
area.
agreed to come into this, but they've been to it agreed makes it. Yeah, this is hard to say.
Mhm.
The fact that they've agreed to come into this situation implies that they had a choice,
Or can leave now.
Right.
or they can leave and change their mind and leave at any moment.
And
But
they can't.
each of them are there for
They're prisoners. They are
I mean,
prisoners.
they and economics has put them there. I mean, certainly
Right.
in terms of the fourth wife, I suppose that the opera singer might have seen her day and to have chosen to become married or become the concubine of this master, because she might have been facing economic ruin once her career was over. The first two, we don't really know too much about how they got there, but the fact that they talk continually about tradition, like you were pointing out, William, and the fact that that the master is so wealthy that he can have 4 concubines and that he can live in this phenomenal building that he lives in, I mean, there's an economic question, and I think in Yimou's head, in his intention of making and working on this movie, he's talking very much about economic. What do I want to say? The class system, economic inequality, the hierarchies. Yeah.
And the mistress is above the maid.
And the mistresses are all above the maid. However, there is a maid, and it's a good point to bring up and tell it in terms of talking about the story. The maid that is given to Gong Li, the fourth mistress, is, I can't remember her name, Yanir.
Yep.
She had expected and hoped to become a mistress herself. It is
Right.
to be a concubine or to be one of the mistresses is a step up from being a servant and being a slave.
Mhm.
A fact that is reflected because when Gong Li gets really pissed off and starts to act out and take it out on people, she takes it out on the servant.
Yeah, shit rolls downhill.
Right from the beginning, because
Right,
when she heard she
exactly.
was the fourth wife, she grabbed the thing, the bowl or whatever, and then the girl looked at her and she goes, "Grab my bags and bring them in. Like, know your place."
Yeah.
And my heart went out to that poor servant girl. It
Yeah.
broke my heart to see that. It was horrible.
Yeah, you kind of would hope that the new person, the person who hasn't learned the ropes yet, would have enough class, enough style, enough empathy to be sympathetic with the slave, with the servant. But as Tom says, shit rolls downhill, and this movie is definitely built on a hill. I mean, there's
Yes.
the class system is explicit all the way through it. I want to talk about the space, the visual thing, the visuals that Yimou uses to tell this story. First of all, just the location. It's in this kind of amazingly large, seemingly large house, and we see a lot of shots from up on the roof of the house, because a lot of some of the action takes place on walkways and in strange little rooms at the top of the house. And there's one little room that is a lock on it. No one's supposed to enter, because the story is women have been hung in that room, and we're never told explicitly why, but the implication, or what we infer, is that because actually I think it is said at once, the master might say that they died there because they had illicit affairs.
Exactly what they said, illicit affairs.
Right, exactly. Affairs outside their relationship. So they're supposed to be chaste and only visited when the master feels like the Red Lantern ought to be set up in front of them. And he does it, as Molly might have pointed out, or somebody pointed out earlier, he does it very clearly to confront or affront the mistresses that have displeased him. When Gong Li, when the fourth mistress displeases him or gets angry, he has it set up direct in front of the third mistress's house, because he knows that that's where the real conflict is. Because they're the two youngest, the third mistress is the most jealous of the new mistress.
And in case anyone was wondering, the first mistress is past her, I think she's hit menopause. She's so old that she never gets him, because she can't make any more babies.
Right.
And I can't remember, does she even show up at her door on the nights when the guy is coming? I guess
she shows up, but she never got it.
Yeah, but they never go to her.
But she did bear his son, his oldest son.
Right.
So I think that gives her a certain amount of respect within the family.
Right. Because again, reflecting the fact that these four women concubines are basically sex slaves, women are very devalued in Chinese society. The stepmother, when Gong Li's father dies, the stepmother refuses to financially support her because she's a girl. Girls don't have
a worthless girl, they called her.
A worthless girl, right? Exactly. Yeah. Yes, I mean, implying that all girls are worthless, essentially, unless they can bear male children.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And one of the subplots that happens momentarily is that Gong Li, I guess she fakes being pregnant.
Yep.
And they all seem to figure out that she faked being pregnant, not that she miscarried, but that she faked being pregnant, in order to get the attention, in order to keep the master from. Well, one doesn't know.
It kept the Red Lantern at her place.
It keeps the Red Lantern at her place, and she gets all this extra attention because she's pregnant. And the other thing about when the Red Lantern goes in front of your house, you are the one that the master goes with, and you get to pick the menu for the meal the following day. And they get at each other because the fourth mistress is a vegetarian. She only really likes to eat spinach and bean curd. And but when the lantern goes in front of the third mistress's house,
all
she
meat.
picks all meat.
All meat. Yep. And then she just got up from the table and left.
Yeah.
I kind of like that she was feisty. The hell with your traditions. I'm getting up.
Right.
And then she got him to bring dinner to her.
Right.
It's like, hey, no one's ever done that before,
Yeah, that's another break with tradition. She's constantly breaking tradition, and she drives the other ones because later on, the third mistress gets up and walks away from the table.
Yep.
And they all break tradition. And the second mistress, is it the second? Who's the one that has the affair?
The ear cut off? That was
That's the
the
third.
third mistress.
The third
the
mistress
doctor.
has
the
an
doctor.
affair with the doctor.
They were playing mahjong, and she dropped a piece, and when she went to pick it up, she
And
saw
sees
it
it.
playing footsie.
Which is probably, I mean, there's no, for a movie that's about sex, women being essentially sex slaves in this system, in this culture, there's no sex in it.
There's
That's
no
as
sex.
close as anybody gets to affection or physical intimacy, is when the third mistress under the table with her stockinged foot is rubbing the calf of the doctor, who's also playing mahjong with him. And she later, as a spoiler alert, is discovered to have had this affair. Actually, the fourth mistress tells the master when she's drunk that the third mistress is having this affair with the doctor.
I don't think she
She
told
told
the
the
master.
second mistress.
She
The
told the
master was
second
away.
mistress.
Oh, who did she tell?
Yeah.
The
The
second
second
mistress.
was there.
She told the second mistress and the second mistress and and I'm not clear. Is it the second mistress that reports it, or is it the servant?
Second
Okay,
mistress.
The
second-
second mistress.
And the third mistress is then thereby taken in a long march up to the little secret room on the top, and is murdered, hung.
And then I thought, that's it. No more of that horrible singing. And then you hear her horrible singing.
Because they got it recorded.
They had it recorded. They cranked up.
So now, given the setup of this, did you guys ever catch what year this
1920
1920, exactly right. Where was it? Did they say that?
at the beginning, 1920. Yep.
Okay, I missed that. But I read it later. It was 1920, which was interesting to me because there's such a feudalistic sense of the way the society works. But I guess that's how China
But
worked.
the way it was set up, it's like this could have been 1920 or 1320, kind of how.
That's what I mean. It's a
Yeah.
it's a feudal system, not feudal, but FUED
Yeah.
system of governance, of the way things work. And yeah, exactly. It could be 13th
Except for
century.
the record player. That wasn't
Right,
on the
that's about
13th.
it.
But like lighting the lanterns, because I was like, in 1920, there was electricity then, but maybe not out in that area.
Right. But it's how they've done it. It's tradition. And it's always in tradition, and we follow tradition. We always do tradition. And Yimou ultimately, I think, is not mocking it in the way that American comedians mock things to get a laugh, but he heightens that notion of tradition so much that we really begin to question it, and that's why he got in trouble with the government. Now, he didn't get in enough trouble that they stopped him from directing, because these movies, all of his movies, have been good products to send abroad to make money and the Chinese government takes a certain amount of money because they pay for it. But I want to roll back now because I started talking about this space. I'm fascinated by this building that they live in, that they can walk on the top of, and all these rooms, and it seems so big. And yet the mistresses' houses are all right next to each other in a very relatively small courtyard, and we don't see very much else. We see one, just to interject, but I don't want to, because it's an important thing. Do you ever see the master's face?
Not directly.
No,
Not
No.
directly.
Right.
I mentioned
I
that.
noticed that as well. Yeah.
Yeah, you see him through gauze
veils,
curtains
yeah,
at
right,
one time,
You
Right.
see a
but not
side
even
profile.
then. It's a medium shot. It's not a
Right.
close up.
Absolutely.
You
Well,
see
You
him
saw
from
his. Go ahead.
what?
I got a question.
Yeah.
When the first mistress was the only mistress, do you think she had that whole half city block to herself, and they just threw up walls the more he added mistresses and made it smaller and smaller?
It was like a
Yeah,
little
They
village.
just
It
kept
really
building
was.
this thing out.
I
It seemed like
feel-
a village almost.
This was a tradition. It was I feel like this residence had been his father's, and probably they were carrying on tradition. So it probably did have all the
For
things
generations,
for-
yeah.
Okay.
for his
Yeah.
father's like wives.
Oh,
Well,
that
you know.
makes-
Also, the thing about the son when he was playing the flute
Yeah.
and Gong Li comes in, they kind of had a little bit of a moment there.
Ooh.
And he called her by her first name, and she said, I don't think you're supposed to do that. And he's like, what am I supposed to call you? The fourth mistress? And then she went looking for her flute.
Yeah.
And she couldn't find it. She thought her servant had taken it. And that's when she went into the servant's quarters and found that doll. And then that's when she figured
the
out,
doll
like,
the voodoo doll that she
the voodoo doll.
right.
And she knew she didn't read or write. And she said, who wrote this for you? And she had to find out it was from the second mistress, you know?
Right.
But the thing is like, she didn't take the flute. The master took the flute and burned it. That was her father's flute. And that, like, that enraged me.
Women weren't allowed to play flutes.
I understand that, but that's what she had of her father, and he took it and burned it. And then he's just like, oh, I'll buy you many more, much better. No, you don't understand the sentimental value. That's probably the only thing she had from her father. It's a horrible thing to do.
That's what you do with
she's
prisoners,
his property.
though, right? Yeah.
But
You
again,
remove
the
their-
flute is supposed to be only men are allowed to play the flute. She would not have been allowed it. We don't see her playing it, but I suspect that she played it. And as soon as the son of the first mistress shows up and he's playing the flute and we hear him, and it's so beautiful, especially when held up against the third mistress's singing
voice, right?
I immediately I imagined immediately this whole wonderful romance of the two of them sitting in a great field playing the flute together, because I wanted her to run back to the apartment and get her flute and come up. And there is definitely, you're right, William, there's definitely a strong moment and a strong current there. And, but it's not allowed to proceed anywhere.
Do you guys have any opinion on what happened to the third mistress's son after this?
Oh,
because that might not even be his. That could be the doctor's son. Is he?
Oh, I don't know.
I think he would still raise him as his son. I mean,
I don't know. I mean,
sons are valued.
It's hard to tell. I mean, the fact that it's not brought up is sort of could imply that, or we could infer from it.
Well, what happened to the doctor?
What?
Right. What happened to the doctor?
Yeah.
Did he have to suffer for his sin?
How much power does the master have? The master who we never see. I mean, he has enough power.
The master can kill someone without question and get away with it.
I mean, he can hang his concubines. You can do anything you want with your concubines, I guess. Whether he can kill an independent doctor who's just a friend of the family, but maybe he owns the man. It's never stated that I remember how he made his money, but he's obviously wealthy.
And he leaves a lot.
And he goes away. But even when he's gone, because of the servants and the whole way that the culture of this place is structured, he's there. I mean, it's not like when the cat's away, the mice will play. They don't. They snark at each other, but they don't.
Like their only entertainment, you know. They stay in their room, and when they have breakfast, and I guess you can leave. Can they leave? Because the second mistress left to the city and caught them in a hotel room, so she was allowed to leave. So I don't know.
They were allowed to. Maybe after a certain amount of time, you are allowed to leave. The implication what I always felt is that you're not allowed to leave. But maybe at a certain time, if the master's gone, you can sneak out or get out, or. But you have to come back. But you have to watch your back constantly, because everybody's peeping on everybody else, spying on everybody else, and everybody's going to hold anything they know against the other. I mean, it's not a very nice world to live in, obviously, except, and again, I'm going to go back to the physical beauty of this building. I mean, it may not be beautiful, but the way it's photographed.
The stonework was beautiful.
It was gorgeous.
The stonework, the tile, those curved tiles on the roof, and the curve of the roof always. I mean, it's very sensuous and very sensual.
You can tell it was built properly. There was no half-assing, cutting corners. They did it right. If it breaks,
was a union gig, I'll bet.
They fix it perfectly.
Union contractors.
The beauty too of, like, in the courtyard with the snow, it was just so nice and white from the snow, and it's just like, on the roof. It was beautiful. It really was shot beautifully.
It's physically really beautiful. The whole movie is. Every shot. I don't think there's a wasted shot in it, or a non-deliberate shot. It's all, as in all of Yimou's films, and you should really see. There's an earlier one that he made with Gong Li called what's it called? Jadou, J-U, new word D-O-U, and To Live are two that he made with her, and a couple others. And I just think she's one of the most beautiful
great.
and one of the greatest actresses
Absolutely
alive.
No argument here.
Yeah, I
She
mean, she
was
doesn't do a
great.
lot of voices and accents like Meryl Streep does, but there's a heart and a soul and an inner human beauty to her that's just stunning. I think every time out.
What did you feel about that poor girl kneeling there? I mean, like, you know, like she wanted the Red Lanterns and she had them inside her little place.
Oh yeah.
And then she
Oh,
took
the
it,
servant,
threw 'em
yeah.
out, the servant, and then she knelt there as they burnt it, and then just stayed there. It tore my heart out. It really did. And then the
Yeah.
fact that she died, it killed me, man. I hated to see that. And I mean, at
Poor
first
her.
I was like, she's kind of being shitty to her, but like she's
She's not very nice. I mean,
She's
she's
not
not a
very
nice
nice.
person, and she has a reputation already as being bad-tempered, and she spits in her
Right,
mistress's
in her clothes,
when
yeah.
she takes them to wash.
Well,
I thought about that when she was feeding her the soup. I was like, this bitch spits on your clothes. What is
I
she
thought-
doing with your soup?
I thought that was the abortion soup that they tried feeding the last wife. I thought
With
she was
lotus
really pregnant, and this
seeds.
is they're giving her the stuff that they gave the last wife to induce a miscarriage.
the third
Yeah,
wife said that she had been pregnant, and she thinks that the second wife
Tried
put
to.
poison in her soup.
Poisoned her food and caused.
And then
that's
she
right,
wanted
I
to have the
remember.
baby first, but then
And
she
it's-
had
it's-
the boy, and the second mistress had a stupid girl, or
Yeah.
something like that.
Right.
Well, the thing with the servant when she was being punished, at one point they did come out and say, you know, if you apologize,
Right.
you can. And she said she didn't even say anything. She just kept kneeling there, and then she died. She could have just gotten up and apologized, but she refused. 'Cause
But she's equally as strong-willed as
Right.
the fourth mistress.
And
is.
probably would rather die than apologize and continue on that type of life, maybe.
Yeah.
Because the best thing she ever dreamed of being was a mistress prisoner.
Yeah, exactly. That
to the
would have
point
been,
where she stole stuff to want to be what these women are not happy being.
well, but she grew up as a servant in that household. It sounded
The
like.
master was still plowing her.
Yeah, well,
I
he
thought
certainly
maybe
had
he
his
did.
hands all over her in that one
Yeah.
scene when Gong Li comes in, and other mistresses talk about it, that he has sex with her.
Yeah.
And her expectation, she fully expected to be appointed or drafted as a mistress.
So is life still like that in some parts of China now?
I don't know.
I don't know. I mean, it's an interesting thing, and it's an interesting conversation that I'm really not equipped to have, whether it is, but also about this movie, whether it depicts real life even in 1920, or whether it's, what would we call it, a parable, or like an Aesop's fable, a morality tale, whether it is imagined, or whether the relationship of the master to the four mistresses is not necessarily a literal thing that maybe he walked down the street and saw, but a thing that he imagined in terms because of the way women were treated and valued at the time, and you don't just flip a switch and say, okay, women are liberated now. You don't get over that any more than we gave women in this country, we gave women to vote very late in 1920. But they're still not free.
What? When did this happen?
Yeah, they didn't ask
Well,
me.
Another thing is that they don't really, or we haven't talked about yet, is the ageism between the mistresses. They go right up the line to like 19, 29, 39,
He's
49.
always trading up for the newer model.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
right. As soon as the master is done with, is tired of one, he has another one come in. By the end of the movie, there's a fifth mistress. Well,
Yeah.
I guess she'd be the fourth because the third is
The
hanging
third
in
is gone.
the attic.
Tom, could you handle 3 more Mollies?
I don't want to annoy that many people. It's hard enough to annoy Molly the way it is.
I think you got your hands full with Molly.
It's a full-time job pissing her off. I don't have the energy anymore.
Well, I think the
wears
three
you
of
out,
us
then.
do a pretty good job of pissing her off from time to time. We switch
Oh.
off, we help out.
I like the fact that we're talking about Molly as though she isn't even here.
Yeah. Hey,
That's
Molly,
okay.
what number mistress do you think you
Wait.
would have been? You're
She's gotta
39.
She's number
Yeah.
1 right now. This
Did you
your
say there's
one.
39?
You're 37. Okay, that would put you right in between 2 and 3, mistress 2 and 3.
Oh, in terms of where she would
Age
be
group,
if
yeah.
the master chose her.
Yeah.
Don't be 2 because
Which-
2 gets her ear
Which
cut.
number or which personality do I match with in
No,
this movie? Because
Um,
I want to be the newer model. I want to be the young one, in this hypothetical.
Oh, that's dead and gone.
Or would it be better to be the established?
I personally, of course, I don't doubt they'd ever ask me, no matter how many of my red dresses I wore, would ask me to be a mistress. But I wouldn't want to be the young one because then he'd be coming and visiting me all the time. I'd
That's
want to be
true.
the old one that just got to live her life and order some food once in a while, or I'd
I
change my
think-
diet and eat whatever they want.
But I think you would be the guy that runs the house for the master. You'd run everything.
I'd be the major domo or whatever
There
they
you
call
go,
him
the
in
major
China.
domo. That's your
Right.
job.
That would
And
be my
Tom,
part.
Tom's the chubby son who plays the flute.
Hey, that's heavy metal in 1920 China.
I
Just
do
means
want to
he's
get one of
healthy and
those
well
little
fed.
things because it's just I like the sound it made.
I looked
know,
it
that
up last
sounds
night
good.
on Amazon.
Did you order it?
No, because the guns we got are better, I guess.
We've got one of those massage, like
Guns.
the
It does
Yeah,
the
the
same
impact
thing.
ones.
It's just,
Oh, I thought you were trying to jerk him around saying guns.
no, the massage guns. That
Oh,
do
like
the
the
same
one
thing.
I have?
Yeah,
like
that
this?
one. Yeah, there.
Oh,
that's
is
a
that
gun.
that's a dildo, isn't it?
No.
A
Hey,
vibrator?
if you're
This
brave
was-
enough,
This
anything
was a
is.
Christmas present from my co-host. It's a
Yeah.
massager. I have arthritis in my spine, and now it's spreading to my shoulder. This is going to really help me out, and it really does give me some relief. Thank you guys again. They gave
Do
me
you,
that for
do you have a concubine to operate it for you on your back?
No, I have to do it myself.
That's hard.
Yeah, I know. Well, it is what it is.
You need the special lady because the maid couldn't do it right in the movie.
Yeah, she said she
Right.
She
didn't
didn't
know
even
how.
try.
She said, I don't know how.
didn't
Yeah, you're
try.
not even trying.
She was doing a little too hard. I don't know, getting massage and getting your feet rubbed, that's not a bad thing.
It's not bad. I mean, the food looks good. You live in a nice place.
Food looked
and-
great.
Yeah, and you don't have to. I suppose if you're the new kid in town, like Gong Li was, the fourth mistress was, the master's setting up the red lantern in front of your house every night, which is a lot, I guess. I mean, I don't know.
Well, that's somebody's job. They carry that. And that's what I thought about that too. Like, so whether they serve it, that's their life, bringing these lanterns around from house to house and putting them up and blowing them out and taking them down and covering them. Because when they found out she was faking her pregnancy, they covered all the lanterns around her place.
That's right.
They dusted off those dusty covers and covered. In other words, you ain't getting none for a while.
I thought that was a
That's
really
right.
nice detail too, because me and Tom both, you could tell that they hadn't been used for a while. They
For
had to
like
dust them off. They're all
generations. Yeah.
covered in.
Right. Yeah.
If
Yeah,
ever,
that's a
they
nice
looked
touch.
brand new. Like no one's ever disobeyed. No, we've never had to bring out these.
Or maybe for
Lantern.
centuries, maybe, or for generations, maybe. I'm sure someone did because a couple of ladies
Oh, a
ended up
couple.
There are
hanging.
a couple of there's some
Yeah.
shoes and bones up there in the room up above.
But like, I'll tell you what, this movie from start to finish just gripped me. I was enthralled by watching it. It was an experience. It wasn't
good.
just
It is.
sitting and watching a movie. You feel that movie. And
Right.
it felt like a blanket on top of me. After it was over, I just felt awful. It was entertaining, but it was like depressing. Those poor women.
Well, it is. It's oppressive if you go ahead and let yourself enter that world and live as one of those women. It's very oppressive, but it's also it should be inspiring to fight against that.
You absolutely don't treat
to
women
identify
like
that kind of repression whenever you see it and go.
But it wasn't a happy ending, though. The lady just lost her mind, and
she lost her mind. It just was walking around in that courtyard.
Everyone else carried on.
Yeah.
Unless she was
and then number 5, wife comes in.
And number 5 comes in and moves right in, and she'll just be the mad one, and eventually probably die of her madness.
Ugh.
Yeah, it's it's a depressing story, but I think we tell just like we sing the blues in order to make ourselves happy. We tell depressing stories and listen to them and watch them in order to feel better. There, but for the grace of us, go I. I mean, we don't live there, so we don't have to live that, and we don't have to subjugate women the way we do, and we don't have to live as men the way he does.
Yeah, I think that's a bad way to treat women.
As fun as Tom would have doing it.
Yeah, well, that's having what they like to call "fuck you" money. I got 3 people on the payroll that only hang my "I'm gonna bang you" lantern.
Listen.
That's their only job.
Tommy's got his mama. He's good to go. You know that. I'll tell you, Mark, I called my son, Will. He's done movie reviews with us once before. And I asked him, I said, please watch this movie because I want your opinion, because it was a heavy duty movie. And he goes, okay, I'll consider. I said, please, I want you, because I want to discuss it with you. And then he watched the trailer and he said, that's an awful trailer. And I was like, no, what? He said the trailer was awful.
Was awful? Oh, no kidding.
But the trailer, and then I watched it. The trailer was kind of awful, but I said, please still do me the favor and watch the movie. It's way better than the trailer.
Did he watch it?
I asked him last night, so we'll find out. It'll probably take him a few days, maybe over the weekend.
Well, because I'm curious how a younger generation, your son being a younger generation, takes it. I don't know that I've shown.
Look at Molly's like, what about us?
Oh yeah, Molly's in
I think we're younger than Will's son.
Oh, Molly, you're an old soul.
Molly's 3 months younger than me. What the fuck?
Well, good. I'm glad. Well, but you guys have been going to the movies with Mark, and I think you are all of you, however many there are of you, are watching movies in a much more an educated way, a much smarter way, a much more careful way, and a much better way than you were when we first started doing this. As a result of these conversations, I
absolutely.
Would say, and I don't mean to be patronizing or condescending, but I just
no, not at all.
Yeah,
no, it's true.
When you start right in talking about it the way you're talking about this, and I think it's a difficult movie for some Americans who are used to the Avengers to watch, because what?
I didn't mean to cut you. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to cut you off. I just wanted to interject that, I agree, but also I hope people do find and watch these and then go and watch these movies as well. Because they're movies that I would not have found on my own and watched otherwise. And I'm glad that I did.
Good, and there's more if you're inclined, and we don't have to. You can watch. You guys, all you guys, and everybody listening can watch movies when you don't have to just watch the movies we're going to talk about, because there are more that Yimou has made that are just phenomenal, like the ones I mentioned. Je Do, I Live. There's another one that Gong Li made by another of the 5th generation name. His last name is Cage, Kaige. I don't know how you pronounce it. Called Farewell, My Concubine, which is a very well-known title.
Yeah, I think I've seen that one years ago.
Yeah,
I love Gong Li. I would love to see more of her.
Oh yeah, Google her and see as many things. I mean, the big American movie that, the American movie that she made that people are aware of is what's it called? My Life as a Geisha? No, something about a
Was
geisha.
Farewell, My Concubine, was that the one where she met the master as a little girl? And he
It
just
could
kind
be.
of
I
kept
haven't
an
seen
eye
it
on
for a
her.
long time,
Yeah.
so I don't know.
Tom, you wrote down the actual original title of this movie because
Oh, it was a novel, Wives and Concubines. It was called.
it's based on a novel.
Wives and Concubines. Yes, exactly.
Wasn't that a Woody Allen movie? No.
But I was wondering if the master still had a wife, like on top of the mistresses.
Oh,
that
I don't
we never
know.
seen.
Maybe when he left, that's where he was visiting. I thought they were his wives.
Yeah,
That's
I,
the way
I,
I was
I
just
think
curious
they
if-
are. That's all you need. I mean, but who knows? He might
Yeah.
be
Well,
greedy. He might have had
they-
a wife at that.
You didn't see it with hers, but with like the fifth one that came in, they do have like a marriage ceremony and refer to her as a wife.
Yeah,
and a
and they
mistress.
and
say
they
that she
talk at
just got-
one point
for
about the
wedding night.
marriage ceremony of the third wife, I think, of the third mistress, I think. So they all, each of them have a ceremony of some sort that is
except
like a
for
marriage
the fourth one, because the whole crew that went to pick her up, she walked past them and she just walked herself over there.
That's right.
But I think that was like the wedding party that was going to pick her up.
Oh yeah, they were. They sent everybody, but she's being an independent sort and a student, and on her own, carried her own bag and walked all the way.
Yep.
Yeah, getting used to it. And she walks into the place and looks around.
The main problem I had with this movie is sometimes the subtitles went too fast. Me and
Went
Tom
too
both
fast,
were
yeah.
having a hard time reading the subtitles as fast as they were scrolling.
I didn't have a problem with it.
Yeah, it wasn't. I'm used to it because I watch every movie with subtitles.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
Because,
we got a couple of
not a
slow
slow
readers.
reader.
Oh, it's
I'm not a
moving
slow
fast.
reader,
Tom
but
can
when
be
you're
a
trying to read
distraction.
and watch, and
It's all right.
well, and watch. It is hard. I'm not all that good at it. It's because as I say, I watch all movies with subtitles because I'm hard of hearing. But I realize that I'm watching a lot of movies without watching faces. I'm just reading, and there is a tendency to have to do this. But Yimou, works so much with silence and just with the visual image that you don't have to read that much. It's not like a Eric Romer movie where there's talking, or a Paul Schrader movie where they're talking all the time.
I didn't notice I was even reading. After a while, it just, to me, I was watching the movie and the words are just coming. I don't know. Maybe I'm just a faster reader. I don't know. It just seemed effortless to me. Sorry that you guys had a problem with it.
there were just a few scenes and there was one where I don't know if it was just our version. The subtitles, like the one woman said something, and then like the other person's like next line was underneath it, and it went by in like 2 seconds, and so we missed what
you do have.
actually
You
said.
can go
But you
rewind.
can rewind and watch it again and freeze frame it and read it.
Oh, Molly, she was going to say
Oh.
something nasty. She almost
Oh, I
said
know
you
who's
were
not getting
real
a red.
Molly.
Yep. Guess
Yeah,
who's not getting
who's
a
not
red
getting the
lantern
red
tonight?
lantern tonight?
It's okay. I don't look good in the red light.
She looks evil.
Next, you're going to be maligning black and white movies. You are the younger generation, I guess, obviously, aren't you?
No, I don't mind the subtitles. I liked them. That was fine. Some of them just seem to move really fast, and I'm a quick reader. I don't normally have problems with subtitles. Some of these just seem to go by quicker than.
Well, I'm glad to hear you say that because I was thinking of suggesting a French movie next.
All right. This was
But-
so good, Mark.
I
Thank you,
am
sir. May
liking
I have
it.
another?
I am watching. I'm loving the
have some
Chinese
more.
movies. They really are good.
Well, I really do. I mean, that's one of the reasons I recommended this. I like this movie. I like Je Do, and I like To Live even more. I think they're more emotional, more accessible, possibly a little less political, but really, really good. He's a phenomenal filmmaker, and the fact that he's not celebrated over here, or the fact that he hasn't come over here to direct, but I guess Chinese directors can't. Only that Hong Kong, John Woo could direct all the movies he wanted to in Hong Kong and come over here and direct movies, but you can't leave China to come over here if you're a resource like
Yeah, because you'll want to stay.
But I really do recommend going back and watching some more of his movies just on your own.
Okay.
Shall we go around and is it almost time? Yeah. Shall we go
Yes.
around and rate it?
Yeah, let's do it.
Molly, you have more hesitation than either Tom or William, it seems like. So let's start with you.
No, I really enjoyed this movie. I enjoyed a lot of things about it, and lots of little things that you noticed, and he did play a lot with just the different visuals and the silence and the just the little things that you noticed that were so impactful, and it focused so much on the women. And I'm sitting here, there were several points where I was screaming at the TV, and I was
What were you
suspicious of the
screaming?
second wife, but I really didn't like the third wife. And then I was mad at myself when the third wife, comes out and has, common ground with the fourth. And then it turns out that she was just being bitter because of, you kind of get to know her, and
You understand her a little more.
regardless. So the thing that I liked the most about this movie, I think, is not only the glimpse it gives you, but also the fact that this director was able to take it in directions that I wasn't expecting it to go and surprise me. And, the little scene with the older son playing the flute, and then you think, oh, they're setting it up for she's going to fall into the trap of falling in love with him, and she's going to get caught. And that doesn't happen. I was expecting it all the way up till the end, and it ended, and I was like, what? There were so many things that I would have expected to happen that it went completely the opposite direction.
Right. And surprised you, but went in a totally logical and believable direction.
Illogical, yep. I agree with that.
But I liked it because we're so used to movies, now I think, I'll sit down and watch a movie, and within the first, 20 minutes, you can probably guess what the ending's going to be. They're very kind of predictable. Right. This was nice. It was refreshing. I really liked it. I think I'd give it a 4.5 or a 5. I'll give it a 5. I'm going to give it a 5. What the heck? I loved it a lot.
Go all the way.
Really
Jump
did.
in. Both feet.
There you
Good.
go.
I want to say just something, because you mentioned something, how female-centric it is, and how they photograph the building. And I thought at several points during it that you remember, the painter Georgia O'Keeffe? Actually,
Yes.
Milwaukee Art Museum has a great collection of Georgia O'Keeffe. She paints all these wonderful flowers, and everybody always says that she's it looks like a vagina. She's painting vaginas over and over again. And I think that's been there are arguments to counter that, but let's go with that, because he photographs, especially lots of the shots above this building, with a down into a courtyard, and with these undulating roofs and tiles of the building, that I kept thinking of Georgia O'Keeffe, and there's a vagina image that he's playing with visually again and again and again. So
Very vaginal.
It's very vaginal. I don't want to tell that joke. Never mind.
Just the relationship with these women. They were so catty. I'm like, oh, that's what happens when you get a bunch of women together.
Yeah. But like you also pointed out,
catty.
They are like that, and they're constantly fighting. But each one of them, except maybe the first wife, even the first wife, has a moment where you begin to understand, and you begin to feel sympathy and empathy for their situation. They're not just bad people; they're just behaving badly.
They're in bad
because of their situation.
Right.
Yeah.
It's almost like, and I want to get back to your joke because I want to hear it.
Yeah, I want to hear the joke.
But it's almost like, what is that syndrome that the name of the
Stockholm. That's where I'm going, Molly. Let me handle this.
Okay, fine.
I looked at
Hold
it.
on,
I wrote
let him
down
tell his
Stockholm.
joke.
I wrote down Stockholm syndrome.
All right, go ahead.
I took it as I looked at it very with a psychological hint to my thought, and there was a Stockholm syndrome, and I'm wondering how this person makes this work under the illusion of freedom, These women chose to be there, but they didn't want the prize, so you needed to do something to psychologically like mindfuck these women into wanting you, and that's where the cattiness between the girls came from. So if you didn't like the girl and the prize was foot massage and the master for the night, you could tell that the girl was singing, trying to interrupt her night with the master, and then all of a sudden they're fighting each other instead of fighting the system.
Right.
Is like just a brilliant way to control people. Like, hey, let's not have them fight us. Let's have them fight each other. And we'll also put another lower class below them. So when I'm done getting pissed at them, there's somebody else to, like I said, shit rolls downhill. And how else do you keep people in line? But you give them a little bit of power that, what kind of power is that to control over a maid? But it's still something.
Yeah.
So
you're absolutely right. The English maintained their dominance over India and the whole of the Middle East for 2 centuries by doing that exact same thing. Pit the Hindu against the Muslims. Okay, you guys are making enough noise. You want to have a Muslim state. We'll make Pakistan, but we're going to draw this arbitrary line across and call it the Durand line, and Afghanistan will be over here and Pakistan will be over there. And you guys just fight amongst yourselves. If you're fighting amongst yourselves, you won't be fighting me. It's a great way to dominate people.
So he dominated these women. And there was, the way the director, also the last thing I want to say, the way the director was masterful, because this movie was literally all about sex and murder, and you saw none of it.
Right.
And that's just great. It's all he's lived in your head.
But you felt all of the emotions.
Yeah, he put it here. He didn't put it on the screen.
Right.
And I thought he did a masterful job of that. And I'm gonna also give it a 5.
And the story he's telling is, like you point out, is not of the sex and the murder. The story he's telling, which is what the tendency in American films is, he's telling the story of the people who lived through it and the aftermath and the result and the psychological damage, spiritual damage, whatever you want to call it. Right. Okay. So a 5.2. Good. Oh, I'm happy about you guys. William.
Okay. So I think they would.
You can give it a 5.5 if you want.
Wait, I didn't know that was an option.
5.5. I'll give it a 5.5. But I have to say that I think if the women could have been a lot happier if they would have learned to get along and to treat each other better, it would have been a better, and then they could have gone against him. They could have overcome whatever it was that he was holding over them. If they would have hung together, they could have overcome this. I just think them going at each other, it was heartbreaking because it's like, this is what your life is.
But I feel like the whole system and that structure was like created to cause disharmony between them. The noise of the foot massager, so that everyone else can hear it and sit there going, that should be me. And the picking the meals and I think it was all purposeful.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. You're right. And because that reflects up at Tom's point that to rule people, deliberately keep them off balance, keep them at each other. And William, I understand your frustration, but he would never have been able to make that movie in China, where the women staged a revolt at that time.
Yeah.
I mean, there's power in sticking together.
Oh yeah. Yeah, and eventually that's how a revolution. I mean, that's what Mao did in, when was it, 56 after the war, when he began to the communist revolution in China. I mean, he did because that oppression had been so great, not just on women, but on men and women, on everybody, that he was able. They were all finally said, "Well, we got to get together and take these guys down."
I see it happening today with the left and right being at each other so much, and I start to wonder, like, who's making us fight?
Yeah, who's sending all that
pulling
stuff
the
out
strings? That's right.
Because we are split right down the middle right now, perfect, almost like it was designed.
Yeah,
like 50 on this side, 50 on that side.
So you
And
give it a 5, William.
benefiting from it. I give it a 5.5.
5.5. Okay.
It's one of the greatest
Okay,
movies
Molly,
ever.
we're going to let William, because he missed last week. He gets an extra half.
Okay.
All right.
I'll give it a 5, obviously, because I love this movie. I love movies like this. I think there are many. The two I've mentioned, and Farewell, My Concubine is good, and there are movies at this level that they make in China, that they have a lot of money to make. They put a lot of money into making them, but they have so many wonderful layers and levels, and kung fu movies like House of Flying Daggers, which is just stunningly beautiful. It also tells a story of forbidden love, of love that that we all love to hear, and it's a kung fu movie. I mean, it's lots of fighting and lots of you should all watch House of Flying Daggers if you get a chance. But they just make brilliant movies, brilliant to look at, brilliant stories with lots of layers and lots of levels, and that may come out of a tradition of storytelling that China has that I'm not completely aware of, but I sense that they put a value on story that we may be able to learn something from, on narrative, like the thing that you've all pointed out in one way or another, that this movie could have been all about sex. It could have been all absolutely about repression, but it's about so many other things. It's about how. I got
a question for you on that thought, Mark. It kind of seems like America's movie revolution started earlier than China's, and our older movies seem to focus a lot more on stories until we are running out and rehashing. Do you think we're seeing that part, like maybe a movie revolution has an arc that goes a certain direction, that maybe China is just at the part where we started out in the 30s, 40s, 50s, and maybe in their infancy they tell better stories?
I don't think you can compare the two, because of what Ebert points out in the review that I read of his, because where this fifth generation, these Chinese directors that I really like, that I'm suggesting, Cage, Yimou, there's another guy whose name I can't remember right now, but anyway, I'll think of it. They came at a certain time where they didn't have the repression of the government, because the government was really just learning about how to be in the rest of the world. But they had the technology and had the money and they had the stories and they had a sense of story, so they could do that. And now I don't know of any Chinese directors that are living and working now in the last 2 decades. I haven't heard of any that are producing the kind of movies on this level. Whereas the American trajectory of the history sort of came earlier. We were making all these wonderful movies in the 30s and 40s, but we didn't have the technology yet to do what he does in this with color. We may not have had the urge either, but we didn't have the technology.
We're also a newer country. I mean, like, their stories are ancient. I mean, like, so they've got a lot more people, a lot more stories that go a lot further back.
Right.
Yeah.
They've got. I mean, they trace their history as a civilization back, I think, what, 4,000 years or 5,000 years, something like that. 3,000 easily.
Well, the Earth is only 4,000 years old.
That's right. I forgot. 4,327 years old.
Wow, that's precise.
Yeah.
Right. So I can't answer that question completely, but they're two different systems. But I know what you mean. I don't think they're behind us or we're behind them or ahead of them. We're in a particular place now with our storytelling where we evolved out of the great black and white movies that I love, that tell a really in-depth story. And again, as William says, how many movies have I suggested that are Westerns? Because that's our culture, expansion, exploitation, conquering the new frontier. That's the story of America constantly, and we tell that story over and over and over again. China has a different story, and Mongolia has a different story. There's a great movie about Genghis Khan called Genghis Khan. That's supposed to be the first of three. That's him as a boy, and it's really
it's Genghis Khan, it's Wrath of Khan,
and then
it's Shaka Khan.
And Shaka Khan.
Shaka Khan, that's right.
Shaka Khan. This time it's personal.
Yeah.
So let's talk about
Next
the
movie.
next time we get together.
Yeah.
I would like to watch. I want to rewatch because I haven't seen it in a long time. The 400 Blows, a movie by Francois Truffaut. I'd like you to look it up and see if it's available.
HBO Max, we're good.
Oh, it's on HBO Max. Okay, good. That's
YouTube,
good.
Vudu,
That's good.
Amazon. Well, it's $3 on Amazon Prime, but Apple TV's $4.
We have HBO Max. The three of us do, so we're good.
We're good.
All right, good. Let's watch
1959.
400 Blows. It's an early Truffaut movie. It's the introduction of a character that he created that he made more movies with about Antoine Doinel. It's a movie that a lot of serious people put on a list of most influential movies of all time.
Oh, nice.
It's brilliant. I think there's some clunky moments in it, but it's for cinematographics. And remember when you watch it that he made it before Godard made Breathless. He made it before they made Bonnie and Clyde over here, before a lot of Americans in the 70s who started when. That's the other period of America, the golden age of cinema is the 70s, I think, when Scorsese came along, Coppola came along, who else came? Ashby came along. Lots of people came along and suddenly had technology, and they had a kind of emotional and psychological freedom to make movies in this country that stand up for a long time. But Truffaut was there before them. I don't know when 400 Blows was made. Does it say there?
It's a 1959 French new wave coming of age drama film.
Right.
Nice.
Yeah. It's
All right,
about a boy in a school, a particular boy who has a particular brain, and I think it's fantastic. But I'm curious to see what you guys think about it. So let's watch that. The 400 Blows.
Not only that, though, but for our listening audience, if you're watching this, 400 Blows available on HBO Max.
The Criterion channel.
And then you can comment when you see our review of it, and then you can just build our audience through that as well. The movie we just reviewed was awesome.
Yeah, if you start doing it, we'll develop this thing and we'll start doing it as a call-in show. You can call in. Molly,
you have the technology. Yes, we do. We can do it live.
Good idea. Right. Good idea. Thank you.
I thoroughly enjoyed the movie, though.
Thank you, Mark. That was awesome.
Looking forward to the next one. Thank you.